First of all, thanks everyone for coming out. I want to first of all thank the Naeves. This is a lovely setting, of course. And I want to thank Hillary first and foremost. Today marks the second time in 2 years that I've been your +1 to a destination wedding, so thanks for that. Hillary and I weren't always close. Anyone who has a brother and a sister, or a sister, probably can attest to the sibling competition that kind of naturally arises fighting for the attention and the affection of your parents. There's always a smart one, there's an athletic one, there's an artistic one. In our case, Hillary was the smart one, and I had never thrown a tantrum and kicked a hole in the drywall, so as far as my parents were concerned, we were pretty much dead even. But as a ripening tween, shopping in both the Husky and the extra small aisle at Nordstrom, I couldn't really pin my sister in a headlock or wrestle her to the ground like some of my bigger and older friends bragged about. So no, I had to terrorize her in some creative ways. I used to set Lego booby traps around the house and listen in on her phone calls, hack into her AOL Instant Messenger and her MySpace accounts. It was Riri87, and her password wasn't that far off from it either. Fortunately for me, speaking of the password, she has and continues to use the same password, despite 2 decades of security breaches, which in light of this marriage ceremony, I think speaks volumes about her commitment, so that's good. Anyway, this went on for 13 years, and it probably wasn't until that car ride to the airport where I kind of had a change of heart. Taking Hillary to fly to Dallas to SMU for the first time also meant sitting in the back seat with Hillary driving away from our cul-de-sac for the last time. And it kind of hit me that I'd wasted 13 years making an enemy of my sister. So like any good diplomat, I want to do an extended olive branch before her departure. And with no olive tree in sight, I settled instead on the only thing I'd brought with me on the trip, which was a dumb, squishy red neck pillow that I called Moshi or something like that, yeah. And it was a prized possession to me, second only to my Beanie Baby collection at the time. When we finally arrived and it was time for our goodbyes, I really didn't have much to say to make up for 13 years of shenanigans, so kind of meekly handed her the pillow, and that was that. And I remember feeling so embarrassed at the time that I didn't have something else more significant to say or something more symbolic to give, but I had the pillow, so. But a year or two later, when I visited her at her dorm, I actually remember seeing that red pillow on the bed, and that felt pretty good. But to be clear, I have not seen this pillow at the Houston home, and that does not feel as good. So where is the pillow? So fast forward a few years, and as the age and maturity gap kind of narrowed, we became closer and closer. And I'd be lying if I said that from that point on, we carried ourselves on like respectable siblings and adults. Anyone that knows us knows that there's about a 24-hour half-life before total regression to childlike teasing and bantering. But it's not like it was before. It's taken on the quality of a lighthearted comedic roast, the kind of joking at another person's expense that only a fraction of people can really share, and an even smaller fraction of psychopaths would exploit. But again, it comes from a good place. For instance, I'll chide her about having an underdeveloped thumb, which is totally gross, and she pushes back about my one webbed toe, which really isn't that webbed, okay? So leave it alone. And we've developed traditions around this type of banter. So the type of card we write one another on Christmas. Last year she won the Christmas roast when she handed me a box of new slippers, and the note read, "It should be cheaper to warm 9 toes." It is not, and I have 10. Undergirding all of these jokes and the name-calling and the pranks and the gaps and the banter and the teasing and this and that, there's obviously something much deeper and more profound at play. And it's become pretty clear that over time, Hillary and I have really become thick as thieves. So, as a younger brother, you find yourself in a bit of a pickle. You're not quite big or strong enough to protect your sister physically, and I'm still waiting on that part. You're not old or wise enough to really provide any useful or protective insights as to kind of how destructive of a force a man can be. And it takes a special breed of man to kind of restrain himself and grow beyond that default setting of a caveman. But I don't have that fear with Doug, because Doug, I think, we can all agree here, really embodies the word gentleman through and through. He carries and articulates himself like a gentleman. He was raised by Mike, a gentleman. He treats Hillary like a gentleman. He associates with gentlemen. If there was a club for gentlemen, I'm sure Doug would be the first to arrive and the last to leave. And when the time comes, I know he will model how to be a gentleman and how to find a gentleman for his kids. So to me, being a gentleman is probably the single best quality I could hope for in the man marrying my sister. It means so much more than opening a door or pulling out a chair. It means that Doug is patient and he's tolerant with Hillary. He's reticent when he doesn't have a... He's very tolerant. Yeah, yeah, very patient too. He's reticent when he doesn't have a fully informed opinion, and he's confident when he does, which is frustratingly often. But most importantly to a younger brother, he's the protector that I really couldn't be growing up, and he's also a nurturer of the new life that they're forging together. So I've been told in a marriage that there's a gardener and a garden, and it becomes incumbent upon one spouse to cultivate and provide the right soil for the garden to blossom and bloom. So I'd like everyone to raise a glass if you've got one. Mine's on the case. And raise it to my sister. So she's a budding rose in the garden of Naeve, and a toast to Doug, my soon-to-be brother. There couldn't be a more perfect landscape architect for Hillary to bloom and blossom. If anyone else wants to say something.